We've got to get your reaction to Hillary Clinton yesterday, what she's going to say today, as well as your reaction to Donald Trump.
Great. So I think yesterday, listen, it's been a great 10 days for the secretary. It's been a difficult 10 days for Trump. I think from the nomination to her foreign policy speech to her cash on hand and then yesterday's economic speech, I think is a good week. With respect to the economic speech, listen, there's a huge difference between the two. Deporting 11 million people, having a trade battle and trade war with China, discussing literally the possible default of our U.S. debt. That is not the way to run an economy. I think when the secretary talks about infrastructure, advanced manufacturing, and clean energy, you're going to see growth in wages. So I think that the country will have clear choices. I don't think nationalist rhetoric works for the economy. I think we have to open our barriers and make sure that, you heard Tom talk about making sure manufacturing comes back. So I think that there's going to be, there'll be discussion, there'll be debates, people will be pointing their fingers at both sides. But I think at the end of the day, I think the secretary's foundation that she laid yesterday is one that will resonate. Is that her foundation largely in terms of what the economic plan is, spending on infrastructure and clean energy? Would you say that that's the nuts and bolts? I would say that those three, obviously both sides will talk education and labor skills and things like that because we need to make sure in this new technological revolution that we're upskilling. But I do think when it comes to her policies, I think if her infrastructure piece has already been out there. She did it in November, and then she did it again a few weeks ago. Her advanced manufacturing.
It's been out there 7.5 years because President Obama has done nothing but talk about infrastructure.
That's not true. That's not true.
No, he has, Robert, every economic speech that he's ever given, I swear he has brought up the word infrastructure.
We should be clear. One,
well, it was partly your idea, the infrastructure bank. That came from Robert Wolf.
We have a long way to go in infrastructure, so no one is saying we're where we want to be at all. Okay, we need a lot more stimulus to infrastructure. It's the fastest multiplier of GDP growth. So yes, part of it is what you've heard from President Obama. I don't think that's a negative. I think everyone would agree. Chamber of Commerce, unions, conservatives,
but Robert, when you speak with a manager of business and CEOs, they want one thing they feel that will really move the needle on growth: tax reform.
I agree with that.
What is Hillary going to do about taxes?
Well, I think it's, when you look at infrastructure, the way to pay for that's going to be business tax reform. The way to pay for clean energy is going to be looking at loopholes for oil and natural gas. And the way to pay for advanced manufacturing is going to be looking at taxes for outsourcing.
So raise taxes. That's how you pay for it.
No. Business tax reform is, my view, and I believe her view, is going to be that business tax reform is going lower, not higher. Okay, remember, the president's policy on business tax reform is going to 28% and 25% for non-manufacturing.
Yes, but if you look at her... She has not gotten behind that.
Why hasn't she said... Why hasn't she said, yes, I'm going to go to 28%?
First of all, she's the only candidate that's put out any policies. She doesn't have to put out every policy, but she has said that her infrastructure will be paid by business tax reform, and we will see maybe today or maybe in the coming weeks what her exact plans will be.
Now, Trump's put out, he has put out a tax plan.
He's got a tax plan.
His tax plan, 30 trillion in new deficits is his tax.
15% corporate tax.
Yeah, that's right, 15% corporate tax.
And you saw what that will do. 30 trillion in new deficits. I'm amazed that Fox
no, it's not 30 trillion. That's not the number.
30 trillion over the next 20 years in new deficits. Okay.
20 years.
Over 20 years, 30 trillion.
I like how they went from 10 to 20. Because usually they scored in 10 years.
All right, so 14 trillion currently. I mean, we could go either way, but for people who have been deficit hawks, it's amazing that all of a sudden we're no longer deficit hawks. Okay. You saw Zandy's report from Moody's. He was very clear.
I did, and it's forecasting so far out that all those numbers I found suspect because they're looking so far out into the future.
Well, most people didn't find him suspect when he was backing McCain.
I will weigh in on, he backed McCain, but then he flipped, and he has been an advisor to the Obama administration on policy because he's a Keynesian. He believes in spending money. He believes in the government spending money.
Listen, he's the president of the United States. All sides are advisors to the president.
Dick Grasso, you speak to business people all the time.
Tom Donahue's an advisor to the president.
We just heard from Tom Donahue, and he kept saying overregulation is crippling, and that's why we're in this position. But you speak with businesses all the time. What do you think is going to move the needle on economic growth?
A man I'd love to hear from.
Well, I'm glad that Robert is smiling smiling because I would love to see all of the 20-year plans he submitted when he ran UBS, okay? 20-year plans, 10-year plans, 5-year plans.
That's true.
Are worthless,
I agree with that.
I want to know what they're going to do in the next year, the next 2 years.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay,
a very good point.
And Robert, you know, you talk about laying a foundation. Foundations are usually, you know, made of concrete, not mud.
Yeah.
Okay, and all we've gotten from both sides thus far is mud. Okay, I said at the outset, Hillary Clinton, when she was senator from New York, worked with the financial services business. She had a pragmatic approach. She was excellent. Hillary Clinton as secretary, now being dragged to the left by, you know, the architect of socialism, our great senator from Vermont, you know, the People's Republic of Vermont, okay? Look at what's happened in Venezuela, all right, which is your best comparator. I mean, if Hillary Clinton had a sister soldier moment, okay, with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and went back to becoming Senator Clinton and laid out a tax plan, a plan for investment, a plan for intelligent regulation, not deregulation, but intelligent regulation of financial services. You, as well as anyone, know that the key to economic growth is a capital market system that can provide the capital for investment.
Will she do that?
Hasn't happened.
So a lot of things going on there, and I have the utmost respect for Dick, so his views are always well received. First of all, I was there the Lehman weekend, and we absolutely needed reg reform. As Dick and I would probably both agree, the 85 Treasury page blueprint was much better than where we are today with tens of thousands of pages. So I'm not one that's saying that we want regulation to hinder growth, okay, in capitalism. I'm saying that when both sides are lobbying on polarizing issues, all that happens is more documents are printed. So we're in agreement that regulation has to be required, but it has to be best practices.
But is Hillary in agreement? Because she says she's going to build on Dodd-Frank. She's going to build on Obamacare. These are two of the most crippling regulations for business. They are making business not hire.
Well, one, I'm not sure I would totally agree with that.
CBO would agree, though.
There's a lot of things CBO would agree. They also would.
But you were citing Mark Zandi earlier, and CBO is nonpartisan. So I think
I'm
the Congressional Budget Office.
No, I understand. I get CBO. On the financial services, I'm not sure more I can say is that I liked it much better when it was more principles based. We have to look at it. It's only a few years in, and it's going to be iterative. Things will change. Okay, so we don't know where it's going to lead to. Okay, you know. Everyone's saying more. The Democrats are putting more in. I'm not sure I agree with that. On Obamacare, we have to find the right balance. I think everyone agrees we're glad that there's 20 million more people insured, okay, than there were 3 years ago. And I also think everyone's glad that the healthcare inflation rate has been slowing. Those are some positives. Do I say I like where Obamacare is today? No, I think it's a good foundation, as you would say, to build off of. But we need to make a lot of iterations to it. But you can't make any iterations to financial services or Obamacare when neither side in the Congress are speaking to each other.
Right.
Okay? You need practical solutions.